Hello, my friends. So I'm going to finish up this Batshit Crazy Zone episode and move on to the list that I have that's growing. And thank you all for your submissions. I really appreciate it because it helps me out so much to have these videos that you find out there that you want me to tackle. And it's great. It takes a little extra step out of me and I can just concentrate on actually addressing the videos. So for those of you who have referenced videos to me, thank you so much.
You're traveling through to another dimension, a dimension of not only paranoia and delusion, but of idiocy. A journey into a wondrous land whose boundaries are that of pure ignorance. Your next stop, the Batshit Crazy Zone.
Moving right along, next article is entitled, What Real Witches Do During Halloween and Beyond.
What real witches do during Halloween.
Okay. All Hallows Eve is more than candy and playtime for some members of society. Halloween comes and goes for most of us. But for members of Wicca, remember we just talked about them, one of the fastest growing religions in the world, the season of Samhain is a magic time. Now, the word is actually spelled out S-A-M-H-A-I-N, but it's actually pronounced from a pagan vernacular, Samhain.
It's not from a pagan vernacular. I don't even know what pagan vernacular means. The word Samhain, pronounced Samhain and spelled S-A-M-H-A-I-N, actually comes from the Irish Gaelic dialect. There are different forms of Samhain, which are pronounced a little differently depending upon if you're from Scotland. So the name differs a little bit, but the word Samhain, the way it's pronounced, is from Irish Gaelic.
Anyway, the Halloween Sabbat, or celebration, concludes for Wiccans on November 1st with the final turn of the year wheel. It's kind of like Wheel of Fortune, you know, where they have the bankrupt and the $200 and $300 things. It's kind of like that. Anyway.
No, it's nothing like the Wheel of Fortune. The turning of the seasonal wheel has absolutely nothing to do with the game show Wheel of Fortune. Samhain has for a long time been considered the beginning of summer and the end of winter, and has been considered to be the Celtic New Year. However, I have heard some evidence questioning whether or not the Celts, depending upon which region those Celts came from, which part of Europe that they came from, actually believed that it was the beginning of a new year. But as for what a lot of Wiccans consider to be a wheel of the year, the wheel of the year is divided into a dark half and a lighter half. The dark half is considered to be the winter-fall season, and the lighter half is considered to be the winter-spring half. And there are many different traditions that will have either the goddess rule during, or have a higher importance placed upon her during the lighter half, and the god be on the darker half. Some have a holly king or an oak king. So it really depends upon the tradition that one follows. But the wheel of the year is the season of the years, and it can also be seen as day and night, or it can be seen as life going over to death and then rebirth again. And Samhain would fall in that category of death and the before rebirth.
Mother Earth nods a sad farewell to the god who will be reborn at Yule.
That sounds about right, but I don't know where you're getting this information from, because you haven't said where you're getting this information, even though I fast-forwarded a lot of this because you basically insulted Islam. I just kind of skipped over that part because I felt that it was a lot of conjecture on your part. But the part now that you're getting to, I don't know where you're getting this information from. As I had mentioned earlier, a lot of traditions consider Samhain to be a time of death, and that's one of the reasons why we scare one another and see skeletons and witches and different things like this. The dark, the cathartic aspects of humanity and this time of sleepiness, or the time before rebirth, which most pagans consider to be usually around Yule, when the sun comes back to life.
December 20th. You know, Yuletide songs and all that Xmas-y fun stuff. We're going to talk a little bit more about that too. But Mother Earth nods a sad farewell to the god who will be reborn at Yule, in this case, Tammuz.
There may be different pagans and Wiccans that do recognize Tammuz as being reborn at Yule, but it's different for each person who follows a different tradition. I think if speaking for myself, coming from a more European-based pagan tradition, I would consider it either to be more of a European sun god, or the Oak King and Holly King, as I had mentioned earlier. And the winter time would be considered, around Yule, considered to be the rebirth. And again, Gaia, or Mother Earth, at this time is kind of considered to be in like a dormant sleep mode, kind of like a hibernating bear, just kind of like waiting out the winter to end and for spring to come back, so that then they can wake from their slumber, or the earth can wake from its slumber and shoot forth new life.
Sun God. Not the Son of God, but the Sun God. And this is a big reason why Christmas was able to transition into that so easily, that season, because they replaced it with, it's the birth of the Son of God, Jesus. No, it was always the birth of the Sun God, Tammuz. And the Catholic Church just came in and Christianized it with a syrupy sweet veneer and said, no, this is when Jesus Christ was born.
You're making an assumption here, and I'm going to run along another assumption and make an assertion myself, and that is that I don't believe that the Catholic Church sugarcoated it and adopted it and gave it its blessing. I think that it was very difficult for the Catholic Church, as it was gaining power over all, basically, the known world at that time, the European known world, and even beyond, because this idea of the sun being reborn around Yule time, waking from its slumber, was so dependent. The people were so dependent upon the fertile land becoming fertile again, animals giving birth to new animals, which were a new food source, and this whole concept of winter ending and spring coming back to the land was probably very difficult for the church to just stamp out. And to be quite honest, I don't see any reason why the church would have had to stamp this out.
It never was the case. But anyway, again, I've done a whole teaching on Christmas that I've done. I give you the link to that in here, and we get into all the particulars of that. This is a time to honor Mother Earth. Remember the ancients, and revere the horn god of the hunt. Oh, the good old horn god of the hunt. The stag god. Yeah, that's what they're remembering.
Yes, usually I assume that you're talking about Samhain still, but I don't know if you're talking about Yule now, but it sounds like you're talking about Samhain. And again, I don't know where you're getting this information from, but Samhain is a time to remember the ancestors, those who have passed, and to revere the horned god, who could be seen as the one who is sort of symbolic of death. If you were caught out in the middle of the night, you could get swept up in this hunt, the wild hunt, as it was considered to be going at this time, and if that happened, you would be sucked off into the other world and you would never be seen again. Paganism is very much intertwined with the realities of life and death and suffering and rebirth. And we don't try to hide or suppress the simple fact that we are born, we get married, we have children, we grow old, and we die, and it is a cycle of things. And we recognize disease and death, and we understand that this is part of life. A lot of people consider death to be the end of life, and then what happens to their soul afterwards is up to their particular faith, their particular religion. A lot of pagans, myself included, see death as not the end. Death is just a cycle. It is that turning of the wheel. Your life comes to an end, and your life will begin again, and your life will end, will begin, and it's a cycle. It's just a different way of looking at our place in nature and the world around us.
According to the Celtic Almanac, the Wiccan year begins following Halloween. Literally, it's their new year. Halloween.
Well, I don't think that's exactly accurate, because you see, Halloween is a Catholic holiday representing All Hallows Eve, the eve before All Saints' Day, where all the Catholic saints are recognized. It happens to fall around the same time as Samhain, which, again, as I said earlier, was considered to be the Celtic New Year, although there is some question about whether it is the Celtic New Year or not.
The seasonal scenario that follows is reminiscent of the earth goddess and god cults of the ancient civilizations. Yule is on December 20th and celebrates the goddess giving birth to the sun god Tammuz.
Warning, warning, batshit crazy levels have exceeded safety requirements. I repeat, batshit crazy levels have exceeded safety requirements. Lilac and Scarhawk must evacuate now. Evacuate video immediately. Emergency shutdown in 10 seconds. Emergency shutdown in 9 seconds. Emergency shutdown in 8 seconds. Emergency shutdown in 7 seconds. Emergency shutdown in 6 seconds. Emergency shutdown in 4 seconds. Emergency shutdown in 3 seconds. Emergency shutdown in 2 seconds. Emergency shutdown aborted. I repeat, emergency shutdown aborted. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Oh. Okay. I think everything's okay now. Alright, well, this is the end of the Batshit Crazy Zone series. I hope you have enjoyed this as much as I have. And tune in next week when I am going to be addressing a new video that was recommended to me by Burnside128. I'll put the link below to this particular video, and my thanks to Burnside128 and for all of you for watching this video. Thank you and blessed be.